Wherever you are, however your day has been, I invite you now to settle in. Let your body rest, your mind unwind, and your breathing soften. Tonight, we travel back in time through the layers of history to a place where marble columns cast long shadows and the scent of olive oil, ash, and old earth linger in the air. We are headed to ancient Rome, but we won't walk in the footsteps of emperors or philosophers. Instead, we'll follow the quiet, weary rhythm of lives often forgotten, the lives of Roman slaves. You won't hear shouts or clashing swords here, just the subtle sounds of sandals on stone floors, the rustle of tunics, and the low hum of lives lived in service. We'll begin with daily life, the small rituals, burdens, and long hours that defined existence for the many who served the few. Then we'll meet one man who defied it all. Spartacus. His name may ring a bell, but his story is deeper and sadder than most remember. Next, we'll descend into the ash-covered silence of Pompeii, where archaeologists have revealed the stark reality of slavery hidden in stone. And finally, we will rise to glimpse the golden world of Roman nobility, where silk and decadence reigned, always supported by invisible hands. If your eyes begin to close as we move through time, that's all right. There's no need to stay awake. Just drift softly as the world of the past unfolds in quiet detail. Let us begin. In ancient Rome, the omnipresent reality of slavery permeated every aspect of life. This institution, deeply ingrained in Roman society, not only shaped the lives of the enslaved, but also influenced the very fabric of the empire. Picture this. You wake up before the sun paints the sky. The air is still cool, carrying the remnants of the night's chill. Your designated spot, a corner of a stone storeroom, offers little comfort. It's a hard, cold surface in winter and a stifling space in summer. The mat you sleep on doesn't belong to you. Neither does your body. You are owned. In the bustling city of Rome, slaves like you are everywhere, unseen and unheard. They serve at banquets, fetch water, dig ditches, copy scrolls, care for children, and clean chamber pots. And through it all, silence is golden. Speaking out of turn or at all could bring punishment. You'll begin your day by washing your master's feet in the copper basin. The mosaic floors you sweep remain perpetually dusty. You measure oil for lamps and wine for guests. Some tasks are soothing in their repetition, allowing your mind to wander. But your muscles ache and your mind drifts. You must stay focused. Overseers watch your pace. Mistresses correct your posture, and stewards count every item in the kitchen before you leave. You're more than just labor. You're a display of your master's wealth. So you must be orderly, presentable, and above all, silent. Life as a house slave in the city has its routine. 4 field slaves on the sprawling estates called latifundia in the countryside. There's only labor from dawn till dusk under a merciless sky, offering no respite. You dig, prune, harvest, and bind. The soil may be rich, but their lives are not. Meals are a rarity, a bowl, a porridge, perhaps sometimes flavored with garum, a fermented fish sauce with a pungent scent. Water and maybe bread if the day ends well. Your clothing is rough and simple. A single tunic, sandals, if you're allowed any, are for the privileged few. You endure the weather's wrath and work even when illness strikes, unless, of course, you're valuable. Even within slavery, there's a hierarchy. Some slaves are literate and skilled scribes, useful and valued. Others are pedagogues, teachers for the children of the elite, forced to instill discipline and kindness they rarely receive themselves. Then there are the gladiators, a paradoxical existence, both enslaved and celebrated, cheered in the arena while still bound in chains. Among them, the most intriguing are the public slaves, owned by the city itself, not a private individual. They clean public baths, maintain temples, and light lamps along the forum. What unites all slaves is not just their shared status, but the constant awareness that you are not free. Your time is not yours. Your silence is diminished. Yet amidst this grim reality, there are glimmers of defiance, a stolen glance, a hushed word, a song softly hummed while scrubbing the atrium floor. These are the quiet rebellions, brief moments of identity, memory, and hope. At night, when your duties end, you return to your corner in the cold storeroom. The city gradually quiets. Torches burn low, casting flickering shadows on the walls. Above you, your master's home is filled with warmth, laughter, lamplight, and scented oils. You listen from below in the darkness, your eyes wide open, waiting for the next day to begin. This is Rome, where the grandeur of an empire is built on the backs of the silent and the unseen. As the curtain falls on this tale, let us remember that each brick of Roman greatness was laid with the sweat of enslaved hands, and that their stories, though silence, continue to echo through history. If you enjoyed this experience, please like the video. Thank you for watching. This work is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution 4.0 International License. I wanted to tell you about a hero today. Not in the traditional sense. No trumpets fanfare. He is not celebrated in bronze or marble. You will not find his face on coins or buildings named after him. You will not see his deeds carved into monuments overlooking a city. You will not hear the crowds chanting his name. This is a quieter story. We are going to tell it quietly. My hero is in the margins of history. He is here in the cracks of the louder narrative. Here is his story. He was born tall, almost too tall for his time. Strong, lithe, graceful. These were not his choices. These were the gifts of his birth, his Thracian birth. His people lived in the wild hills far from the reach of Rome. His name was Spartacus, and he was a soldier, fierce and free. Until he wasn't, until he met the Romans and law. And when you are too tall, too strong for your bonds, you become a liability. When you do not bend, they break you. He woke up one morning in shackles, stripped of everything but pain and rage. He spent years as a prisoner, endured the long, slow burn of captivity, and then came to Ludus, the gladiator school in Capua, where men went to die or to be reborn as something less than human. Something for the amusement of the mass. He learned the art of killing and killing fast, striking hard and avoiding the fatal blow. Over and over again, it was a deadly dance, and the crowd roared its appreciation. But something in Spartacus snapped. It was not enough to be a dancer when he was meant to be a warrior. The turning point came when he looked up from the sand, from the blood, from the roar, and saw a wall. A real wall. Not the painted backdrop of the Ludus, but a real stone wall so high it disappeared into the clouds. And Spartacus wondered, why not? The Ludus was surrounded by walls. Yes, but outside those walls, life went on. People walked in the street. Merchants displayed their wares. Slaves gathered water. A mother cradled her child. Why not escape and join them? He thought. Why not build a new life? Why not taste freedom? The desire burned in him until it became a plan. He befriended some fellow captives, spoke in hushed tones, exchanged glances, laid plans late at night, waited, prepared. Then one night they were ready. They slipped out, a band of 70 or so men, armed with kitchen knives and wooden swords. They snatched what they needed: weapons, provisions, clothes, anything that could help them survive on the road. And they vanished into the darkness, leaving behind the life that had been thrust upon them. The life they had resisted and sometimes embraced. Their destination, Mount Vesuvius. There they hid, 70 souls seeking sanctuary in the shadow of a volcano. Spartacus may have been tall and strong, but this was not a victory. It was merely a beginning. They were hungry. Roman forces descended on the mountain, expecting a quick victory. But Spartacus was ready. He had scouted the area. He knew its paths. He led his men through the thickets, over the rocks, past the pursuing soldiers, away from the sounds of civilization. And when the dust settled and the soldiers were gone, Spartacus gathered his followers. He told them it was time to grow. He went to the cities of Italy, to the farms, to the marketplaces, and raised an army. More than 100 joined him, then 200, then thousands. They were not an elite fighting force. They were not trained. They were tired, hungry, disillusioned, but they had something powerful, something worth fighting for. They had nothing to lose. And Spartacus was patient. He knew that brute force alone would not win the war against Rome. He cultivated alliances, sought common ground. He negotiated with Gauls, Thracians, even pirates. He treated people fairly, showing kindness and demanding respect. Slowly, surely, the tide began to turn. Spartacus was not a god, not a savior, just a man who dared to dream of something more for himself, for his people, for anyone who longed for freedom. The war lasted 3 years. Spartacus and his followers pushed toward Rome, battling opponents, winning victories, gathering more recruits, defying expectations. He was not invincible, not a demigod. He made mistakes, suffered defeats, but he kept going. His spirit echoed in the mountains. His tactics surprised his enemies. Even when he lost, he gained ground. The Senate was furious. The Republic's power was challenged. They sent their best general, Marcus Licinius Crassus. He was rich, influential, ruthless. He hunted Spartacus, defeated him, trapped him on a mountain. But Spartacus did not surrender. He knew it was hopeless. It was a question of when, not if, he would die. He chose to die on his own terms. And in the end, it was not a glorious death, not a legendary battle. It was a massacre. Spartacus and his men were betrayed. Many died, their bodies left unburied on the slopes of the mountain. Rome triumphed. It always does. Or so it seems. Spartacus's head was cut off and displayed in the Roman Forum. His story ended, or so it seems. The rebellion failed, but the spirit of resistance continued. The idea of freedom took root. It grew stronger, finding new soil in the hearts of the oppressed, the exploited, the discontented, the ones who, like Spartacus, just wanted something more, something better, something real. The story doesn't end there. Not really. It lives on. It echoes in the cheers of the crowd, in the crack of a whip, in the hum of everyday life. It is everywhere and nowhere. It is the quietest scream in the loudest arena. And we, the viewers, the listeners, the witnesses, carry it within us. It reminds us that even in the darkest times, even when the odds are insurmountable, even when all seems lost, there is always the possibility of hope. There is always the chance for change. Pompeii is an open-air museum now. Its ruins are a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's one of the most popular archaeological sites in the world. So much of what we know about life in Roman times comes from this place. That includes what we know about slavery. Here, where all of these preserved artifacts tell us so much about those who lived here. We can also see the lives of the people that history remembers only as property. A lot of what we know about Pompeii comes from a team of archaeologists led by an Italian nobleman, an amateur archaeologist named Amedeo Maiuri. He excavated many of the most iconic sites in Pompeii, including the Forum, the temples, the Villa of the Mysteries. But while he was excavating these areas, he wasn't looking for the stories of the enslaved people who lived and died here, and so the excavations continued around them rather than through them. It would be years before anyone took that work seriously. In the late 90s, a new team came to Pompeii, led by archaeologist Gabriella, who work focused on daily life in Roman times. That included the lives of the enslaved. She and her colleagues began excavating residential and commercial spaces that previous teams had ignored or destroyed. That included servants' quarters, storage rooms, shops. They hoped to find more mundane objects, things that could shed light on everyday life. Instead, they found human remains. They found at least 200 sets of human remains in the archaeological site of Pompeii, almost all of them belonging to enslaved people. Some were found in the atrium floors, like this one, where the soil was literally filled with human bones. Others were found in the walls. Many were found in the Villa of the Mysteries. This villa was once thought to be a brothel because of the frescoes on the walls. But the excavators knew that whoever lived here couldn't have been free people, and the skeletons told them why. This skeleton belonged to a woman. As she was laid to rest, she was holding 2 cups, one in each hand. One cup was thrown to the side. The other was held tightly against her chest. She was wearing shackles. She didn't have a name. She was recorded as Mysteria 1. Another woman was found with her skull crushed. She was called Mysteria 2. Somewhere else, 2 women sat facing each other on stone stools. One had a cloth tied around her head. The other had a metal collar around her neck. Their wrists were bound together. Their ankles were bound together. Their elbows were bound together. They were back to back, shoulder to shoulder, chained together for as long as they lived. These people were kept in rooms without windows in what were effectively stone coffins. They had nowhere to go but up, nowhere to turn but each other. They shared their food and their water and their silence. They may have shared names too, because some of the bones found in Pompeii have names carved into them. Names like Secundio and these names indicate that these people may have been owned by the same person. They might have belonged to the same family. The story of the eruption of Vesuvius is tragic. The people of Pompeii lost their lives in a moment. The enslaved people of Pompeii lost their lives in moments. They were beaten to death. They were strung, lad. They were burned alive. Their skulls were crushed. They were thrown into pits and covered with dust. They were put to death like animals. But then they were abandoned like trash. In 2021, archaeologists in Pompeii discovered another secret story. Beneath one of the houses they were excavating, they found a tunnel. It was covered by a wooden door and a stone slab. It was hidden beneath the stairs. It was the entrance to a subterranean labyrinth. Rooms carved out of the rock below the house. Prisoners were kept here. There were beds carved into the walls. There were shackles on the doors. And on the wall above the entrance, someone had carved the warning: whoever enters here must leave all hope behind. Over 2,000 years later, archaeologists are still finding new ways to remember the people whose stories were lost. Because underneath the beauty of Roman frescoes, underneath the mosaic floors and marble statues, underneath the grandeur of the empire, there was an entire other story that history didn't want you to hear. It was a story of the people who were bought and sold and punished and but it's a story that deserves to be heard because these people were real people. They had dreams and hopes and fears and loved ones. They had names and faces and favorite colors and meals and stories. They had whole worlds inside their heads. And the story of Pompeii tells us that even in death, they won't be silent. Now close your eyes and imagine. Imagine now a long hallway paved in polished marble. The afternoon light filters through an open atrium, casting, dancing reflections across an indoor fountain. You smell the faint sweetness of lavender oil and fresh citrus. You hear only soft conversation, the gentle trickle of water, and the lazy strum of a lyre. This is the domus of a Roman elite, a world that floats calm, scented, and didn't above the clamor of the city and the toil of the enslaved. Here, leisure is not a reward. It is an expectation. You are a member of the Roman elite. Leisure is your birthright. Your host reclines, half lounging on a couch in the triclinium, the formal dining room. He wears a tunic of dyed wool, perhaps edged with purple, the sign of status. He has not chopped firewood. He has not carried water. These things are done before he wakes. Breakfast is modest. perhaps bread with honey and olives. But the day is just beginning. Midday brings the baunia, or private bathhouse, an indulgent ritual. There is undressing, then warm steam. Attendants stand ready with scrapers to cleanse the skin, perfumes to scent the air, and towels warmed by coals. Conversations meander politics, poetry, dreams. Afterward, there might be readings in the garden. A slave reads aloud from Virgil. Another plays a delicate tune on a... Children are taught rhetoric by a pedagogus, a slave tutor who speaks several languages and never interrupts. The afternoon meal descent is a performance. Couches are arranged in a U-shaped. Guests recline. Slaves circulate with trays of roasted dormice, honeyed fruits, and garum-spiced delicacies. Wine flows freely, always diluted, always served by hand. The elite measure their wealth not in gold alone, but in how little they must do. One might own hundreds of slaves and never know their names. There are those assigned only to tie sandals. Others hold sunshades, fan guests, or serve as human furniture, decorative and still. Even the art on the walls reflects this imbalance. Mosaics show banquets, mythological triumphs, rarely toil. But leisure has rule. A misstep laughing too loudly, reclining incorrect, wearing the wrong shade can mark one as nouveau rich, or worse, vulgar. True Roman elite leisure is elegant restraint, effortless control. Of course, this elegance is supported by invisible labor. Fires lit before dawn, tables set with perfect symmetry, every cushion fluffed, every plate polished, every spilled drop immediately wiped away. And yet, even in such opulence, there is a quiet pressure to host correctly, to speak with wit, to dress with care. The elite may not labor with their hands, but they labor to maintain status, to ensure their dumas reflects dignity, to outshine neighbors with subtlety, not spectacle. As the day ends, oil lamps glow, curtains of dyed linen are drawn, laughter softens, slaves prepare beds of feather and wool, light incense to mask the night, and retreat to corners or corridors. The elite drift into dreams. Above the city, above the noise, above the many lives that make their world possible. And now open your eyes. Imagine that again. Imagine being part of the Roman elite. What does it feel like? What would you do with your time? How would you spend your days? How about your nights? What about the food? What would you wear? Where would you go? What would you see? What would you buy? How would you entertain? How would you treat others? What would your life be like if you were part of the Roman elite?